Okay, so this is my field journal. My first entry was from January 20th. Hold on, let me. And so basically in this one, I basically had gone to my backyard, and this was probably the first time I've gone to my backyard since I went out to, since I rented the house. And initially it was completely dead, and this time when I came out, it was full of grass, and I was actually really surprised. So I ended up choosing to do my first field journal in my backyard. Um, that's how I basically decided to do about it. My backyard mostly had a bunch of grass. There's a flagpole on the corner. The dead grass, the dead mouse that was right in front of the door was no longer there. So yeah, that ended up disappearing. Alright, so I have a sketch actually of my backyard. So I have a brick fencing all around. It's like 6 to 7 feet. This is the basically the entrance where my door is, and then there's a bunch of grass all over. The next entry is on January 27th. Basically, so how I got this one was about going to Yosemite with my housemates and a couple of our friends. There was actually kind of two main reasons why I ended up going to Yosemite, because one, I had a job interview before this, so I had actually left for the Bay beforehand, and it actually was finished. The first process was finished by Friday, and so basically the whole weekend I was free. So my housemates messaged me and told me to come back. So we ended up going to Yosemite, and I kind of wrote a little bit more on the other end. But we went we went camping, and we also went hiking the up the Yosemite Falls. We didn't really see any animals because there was recently a fire, so we actually ended up camping nearby the area that was burned. So none of the animals were really around that area. Um, and also the hike up to Yosemite Falls was swarmed with people, so there wasn't really much people. There wasn't really much animals in the area. But also, one of our friends whose birthday was that weekend also, she was leaving the U.S. and she wanted to see Yosemite for the first time, so we ended up taking her. And I did a little sketch of the river that was nearby our campsite, because it basically was really nice in the sense of peaceful. Um, we occasionally saw a few fishes here and there, but no real wild animals. So on February 3rd, this one was when we basically did the field excursion to the reserve. The day started out with me picking everyone up, driving there. We went around the first loop in our cars. Well, before this, we had actually gone and walked out, but because me and the people that were in my car, along with Ferris and the others, came a little bit later, we had actually gone into the exhibit and seen all the display of the animals and whatnot, while the teacher, you, and some of the other students went and took a first small loop. We had met back up outside, and then afterwards we took our loop around, and we've seen a bunch of birds, ducks, and stuff. And the sketch that I had for this one was so there was this lake area where there was a bunch of grass, this tree in the background, but then there was a swan, and well, not a swan, but there was a bird there. I don't remember the name of it. I kind of forgot to write it down way back then. But yeah, so here's the water, and here's the animal that we ended up seeing. Well, this is one of the animals that we ended up seeing. The weekend of February 10th, I ended up being in Los Angeles. The process of how I got to Los Angeles was a lot of complications that involved with my brother. I didn't really have too much time to write this one, so this is a fairly short one. But then that weekend, because I was already down there, I actually spent with my aunt, and we went to Newport Beach. We went around the beach. We saw the waters. We saw a bunch of seagulls and stuff around that area, and a couple of like dolphins and stuff in the waters. But other than that, there wasn't really much else. There was a lot of fishermen on the piers, and it was actually very peaceful. The water is actually a lot like nicer than that of San Jose. So February 18th was basically after I had missed actually the February 16th of class because I ended up having to meet up with a BART client. I actually don't have a sketch on this one, but so this article the teacher had told us to write about the waterways, and so I ended up that weekend going up to my uncle's because I was near the area. The BART thing was basically around Oakland and San Francisco, and my uncle lived north of San Francisco, so I went up to there, and basically he lives right along the Russian River, which is in the wait, hold on a second. Shoot, totally. I'm gonna read through. Oh yeah, so the area that he's in is in the Monterey area, which is about an hour and a half north of San Francisco. This was actually a really nice one because I actually got to see like a bunch of deers, a bunch of herbs that he had planted, trees and stuff, and it was actually really peaceful and whatnot. There was a little river by his house. There was a mountain on the back, which was the forest, and in this little sketch that I kind of just scribbled down during the time there was a deer that I actually had seen across the river on the other side where the other end of the forest, and here's the river, here's the trees, then basically I was standing over right here where on the other opposite side of the river. So on February 24th I had actually got hold on. So February 24th I had written one for I went fishing with my buddies at the Mid-Clear Point. There wasn't really much greenery. There was small patches of grass here and there, but most of it was just rocks and dead grass. The only animals that I really noticed there was the fish that we ended up catching. We ended up only catching one fish, which was the very beginning. I actually would have liked it if we had caught more, so I actually could write more about it, but we actually only caught one fish, so that was the only animal that we had interacted with, while the only living things were like the patches of grass that were sparingly around. On March 3rd, I had actually gone back for the weekend, and I went with my aunts and uncles to Alamir Falls, and I wrote my journal on that because it was a really nice hike where you end up going to basically a series of waterfalls that lead down. There were plenty of flowers and stuff. There was actually a bunched up area of trees where basically everything you see about that tree was white. The trunks were white, the leaves were white, so that was actually really interesting to me, and I thought that was actually really like cool to find out. There was also patches of area where there was like bunches of flowers of different types all growing in like an area. So this was a really nice area that I ended up exploring. And then later for March 10th, which was basically last weekend, I had I had basically gone bonfire with my buddies at Bonnie Doon Beach. We set up a bonfire, and at first, before the sun went down, we kind of pitched up right next to a big rock, and around the corner of that rock, there was a huge nest of black widows. And I found that really interesting because I always thought black widows by themselves, but we ended up finding one where there was a bunch of them all in the same area. There was no birds, there was no really like plants or anything in that area, But the interesting thing was later at night when all the light was gone and the bonfire was the only thing that was lit, there was these small little white bugs that ended up like kept on crawling into the fire for some reason. So I found that was really interesting. This one's actually fairly short also because I ended up running out of time because the sun was basically gone and I basically couldn't even see I couldn't really see anymore, so I kind of finished it off there. So these are my 8 field journals. Some of the challenges that I faced were deciding what to actually do, plus also the fact that my full-on schedule was extremely busy, so I actually couldn't really do too much that I would prefer. Some of my goals for the next set would be to give myself more time to actually like see the area and try to find more animals and stuff. But for the most part, I actually really enjoyed like writing things down and looking for places to go to explore. Thank you. That is my field journal.